All right, so here's the thing. There are beach towns in America where people don't actually vacation. They live quietly, year-round, with schools, grocery stores, hospitals, and just normal routines sitting steps from the ocean. And yeah, that part always makes me slow down for a second and really think about it. And after doing deep research into real livability, not surface stuff, not postcard vibes, we found 15 places most people completely miss, which honestly surprised me too. And that's where we're starting now. Number 15. Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. Hilton Head Island kind of feels like one of those places tourists think they've totally figured out, until you actually slow down and look at what daily life really looks like here. This Atlantic Barrier Island supports nearly 40,000 year-round residents who bike past live oaks along more than 50 miles of paved trails, pick up groceries around Shelter Cove Town Center, wander through Coligny Beach Park in the evening, and still make it home before sunset spills over Port Royal Sound, which honestly paints a different picture than the vacation brochure version. Its roots stretch back centuries to early coastal settlements, but today the island runs as a fully functioning community with neighborhood schools feeding into Hilton Head Island High, parks like Chaplin Community Park hosting pickup games and weekend gatherings, and healthcare access nearby through regional systems serving Beaufort County. And that's exactly why so many people quietly decide to stay long after the visitors pack up and head out. Mornings here might mean coffee near the marina. Afternoons usually drift into shaded bike rides between residential enclaves. Evenings bring dolphins breaking the surface just offshore. That whole rhythm feels calm, connected, and surprisingly practical in a way you don't expect at first. This is coastal living built around real routines, not just postcards. Hilton Head works because it protects its shoreline, limits overdevelopment, and leans into bikeable neighborhoods instead of traffic-heavy sprawl, and that decision shapes everything. Long-term property stability, mild winters, and strong community planning keep full-time residents choosing this island over louder coastal markets year after year. You get wide beaches, preserved marshlands, reliable infrastructure, and a pace of life that feels intentional without slipping into sleepy. If a quiet South Carolina island can pull that off, just wait until you see what California hides at number 14. Number 14. Malibu, California. Malibu is where that rugged Pacific coastline just slams into the Santa Monica Mountains, and somehow you get this stretch of Southern California that feels almost impossibly wild, especially when you remember it's sitting less than an hour from downtown Los Angeles, which still kind of messes with your sense of distance. What catches most people off guard is that this isn't only celebrity beach real estate, it's a functioning coastal community stretched across roughly 27 miles of shoreline where full-time residents grab groceries near Malibu Country Mart, walk their dogs along Carbon Beach, hike Solstice Canyon in the morning, and still make school pickup in the afternoon without it feeling like some dramatic production. Daily life sort of flows between surf breaks at Surfrider Beach, sunset walks at Zuma Beach, and those quiet canyon roads that feel completely removed from city noise, even though Pacific Coast Highway keeps everything stitched together in the background. The geography does most of the filtering. Steep hillsides limit development. Oceanfront parcels are finite. That natural scarcity explains why housing values stay elevated, but it also protects something rare in Southern California, which is real privacy layered into everyday livability. And that combination is not easy to find. Malibu works for year-round living because it offers more than views, and that's the part people underestimate. Pepperdine University brings a steady academic presence. Malibu High anchors local families. Parks like Point Dume State Beach and Escondido Falls give residents outdoor access without driving hours inland. Healthcare runs through nearby regional systems serving western Los Angeles County, while regular errands happen in compact commercial pockets instead of sprawling malls, which keeps things surprisingly grounded. Surf culture still runs deep here, long before film crews showed up, and locals treat sunrise paddle-outs the way other towns treat morning jogs, just part of the rhythm. Some neighborhoods sit directly above the ocean. Others fold back into canyons filled with sycamores and eucalyptus. That contrast creates these micro-communities where neighbors actually know each other, even as paparazzi headlines paint something louder and flashier. Malibu isn't affordable for most people, but it is livable for those who build routines around its rhythms. Because this is one of the few places in America where world-class beaches, mountain trails, and urban access all coexist inside the same daily loop, which is kind of wild when you step back and think about it. If a Pacific cliff town can balance surf culture with full-time life, just wait until you see what North Carolina quietly perfected at number 13. Number 13. Wilmington and Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina. Wilmington and Wrightsville Beach kind of work together like this quiet coastal cheat code. Because you've got a real riverfront city on one side and a true Atlantic beach town on the other. Tied together by a short drive, locals barely even register anymore. And honestly, that combo is exactly why so many full-time residents end up here instead of chasing those louder Outer Banks destinations. Wilmington sits along the Cape Fear River with a historic downtown where people walk the Riverwalk after work, grab dinner near Front Street, and run errands like they would anywhere else in America. While Wrightsville Beach brings wide sandy shores, steady surf, and sunrise paddleboarders who treat the ocean like a daily appointment rather than some special vacation thing. Mornings might kick off with coffee near the Intracoastal Waterway. Afternoons slide into quick beach walks at Wrightsville. Evenings wrap back around in Wilmington's neighborhoods, where grocery stores, schools, and medical centers keep life grounded and predictable. And that rhythm just kind of settles in. This area feels livable because it actually is. The Port of Wilmington supports the local economy. UNC Wilmington adds that college town pulse. Airlie Gardens gives residents a quiet green escape filled with live oaks and azaleas. Families rely on New Hanover Regional Medical Center for healthcare. Boat ramps dot the Sound. Neighborhoods stay walkable. The beaches never feel sealed off behind resort walls, which matters more than people realize. What catches newcomers off guard is how balanced it all feels. You can kayak Masonboro Sounds before breakfast, meet friends downtown for lunch, and still make it home in time to watch the sunset over the river. And yeah, that's when you start to get it. Real estate professionals consistently point to this pairing as one of North Carolina's most stable coastal setups, because infrastructure, culture, and beach access all coexist without fighting each other. Wilmington brings the restaurants, art scene, and historic charm. Wrightsville Beach delivers clean sand, clear water days, and that relaxed surf town rhythm. Together, they create a lifestyle that feels active but approachable, coastal without being isolated, and community-driven instead of tourist-dependent. And there's something quietly powerful about that. People come here expecting a beach town. They stay because it feels like a normal place to build a life. which honestly makes what California offers next at number 12 even more interesting. Number 12. La Jolla, California. La Jolla, California honestly feels less like just another neighborhood of San Diego and more like its own seaside village perched above the Pacific, where rugged cliffs meet calm coves and daily life moves at this slower, more intentional pace. And you notice it pretty quickly. People start their mornings walking along Coast Boulevard, watching seals gather near La Jolla Cove, or grabbing coffee in the village before heading off toward work, school, or one of the nearby research campuses that quietly anchor the local economy. And yeah, that mix feels different. The coastline does most of the talking here. La Jolla Shores stretches wide and swimmable. Sea pulls in surfers who've been showing up for generations. The tide pools below Ellen Browning Scripps Park turn afternoon strolls into these impromptu science lessons for kids, which is kind of magical if you stop and think about it. What really makes La Jolla work for full-time living is how complete it feels, like it's all actually here. Bird Rock gives you walkable residential streets with neighborhood markets and cafes. La Jolla Shores blends easy beach access with family homes and small apartment clusters. Torrey Pines State Natural Reserve sits just up the road for weekend hikes with ocean views, the kind that reset your whole week. UC San Diego brings a steady academic presence, while major medical institutions like Scripps and UC San Diego Health deliver world-class healthcare without ever leaving the coast. And that matters more than people realize. Real estate stays expensive because land is limited and owner occupancy remains high. But residents keep pointing to the same trade-off. You pay for stability, scenery, and a community that functions year-round instead of shutting down when summer ends. School zones stay active, parks stay busy, beaches belong just as much to locals as they do to visitors, and that balance is rare. You can swim in the morning, run errands in the afternoon, and watch the sun drop behind the cliffs by evening, all without feeling boxed in by big city sprawl. La Jolla works because it protects its shoreline, preserves its village centers, and blends coastal beauty with everyday infrastructure in a way very few California beach towns manage. And there's something quietly impressive about that. If this kind of refined ocean living catches you off guard, wait until you see how Florida quietly reimagined community planning at number 11. Number 11. Seaside, Florida. Seaside honestly feels like somebody sat down and designed a beach town for real life, not spring break. Because this small Gulf Coast community along scenic Highway 30A was built around walkability first instead of traffic, and you feel it right away when mornings kick off with bike rides past pastel cottages, kids cutting through pocket parks on their way to the town square, and neighbors bumping into each other over coffee just steps from the sand at Seaside Beach. The place sits on those emerald waters of the Gulf of Mexico, where sugar-white beaches meet calm surf. And here's what's different from most Florida coastal towns. Seaside was intentionally planned from the ground up, with narrow streets, front porches, shaded paths, and a compact town center that keeps everyday errands simple. Simple in a way you don't expect anymore. Residents drift between Central Square, local shops, open-air markets, and community events without even thinking about a car, while Grayton Beach State Park and Western Lake sit nearby for paddleboarding, hiking, or those quiet sunset walks that kind of reset your brain. Life here runs on small routines: morning swims, afternoon grocery runs, evening concerts in the pavilion. Families lean on regional healthcare in Walton County, Schools serve a steady year-round population, and neighborhoods stay active long after vacation season fades, which tells you a lot. Real estate professionals keep pointing to Seaside as one of Florida's strongest examples of community-first coastal development, where strict building guidelines kept high-rises out, preserved sightlines to the water, and created a town that feels human scale instead of resort scale. And yeah, that planning choice really matters. It's what lets Seaside function as a real neighborhood, not just a backdrop for photos. Residents talk about knowing their neighbors, walking everywhere, and feeling connected to both nature and community, which is rare along heavily developed coastlines. The beaches stay public, the streets stay calm, the vibe stays intentionally slow. Seaside proves Florida beach living can feel thoughtful, organized, and surprisingly grounded. And if a carefully designed Gulf Coast town caught your attention, just wait until you see how Virginia blends city energy with shoreline access at number 10. Number 10. Virginia Beach, Virginia. Virginia Beach is one of those places that technically counts as a city, but honestly lives like a beach town, where people clock out of work, walk straight onto the boardwalk, and still make it home in time for dinner. And that balance right there is exactly why so many residents stick around year-round instead of treating it like some seasonal escape. Life stretches along miles of Atlantic shoreline here, with locals jogging the oceanfront at sunrise, families spending afternoons at First Landing State Park, surfers catching waves near Croatan Beach, while kids mess around near the fishing pier. And it all kind of blends together in this steady daily flow. The Vibe Creative District adds color and personality with murals, small galleries, weekend markets, and independent shops that give the area a neighborhood feel beyond the hotels, which you don't always expect in a place this size. What catches newcomers off guard is how complete the infrastructure actually is. Schools consistently draw families. Centera Virginia Beach General Hospital anchors healthcare access. Town Center handles everyday shopping and dining without ever needing to leave the coast. The Chesapeake Bay side offers calmer water for kayaking and paddleboarding, while inland neighborhoods feel suburban and quiet just minutes from the sand. And yeah, that contrast is kind of the magic. Virginia Beach works because it supports real routines. Real routines. Parents do school drop-offs before morning walks on the beach. Military families from nearby Naval Station Norfolk blend right into civilian life. Retirees bike shaded paths in the afternoon. Young professionals meet friends along Atlantic Avenue after work. The city keeps public beach access open, invests in parks, and maintains one of the longest pleasure beaches in the world, which lets residents enjoy the ocean without living inside a resort bubble. And that's when you realize how intentional it all feels. You get art, nightlife, outdoor recreation, and family-friendly spaces wrapped into one long stretch of shoreline, proving beach life doesn't have to mean isolation or limited options. And if a city-sized beach town can pull that off, just wait until you see how California turns art and cliffs into everyday life at number 9. Number 9. Laguna Beach, California. Laguna Beach kind of feels like someone dropped an art village right onto a run of dramatic Pacific cliffs. Because this small Orange County coastal city mixes creative culture with everyday beach living in a way that's honestly tough to duplicate anywhere else. Life here shifts between coves and galleries, almost back and forth like a rhythm. Residents walk through Heisler Park in the morning with the ocean stretching out below their feet, grab lunch near Forest Avenue, and close the day watching the sun sink behind Main Beach while surfers rinse off nearby. And it all feels strangely seamless. The coastline breaks into hidden pockets like Thousand Steps Beach and Shaw's Cove, which gives locals quiet escapes just minutes from their own front doors. And that proximity matters more than you'd think. What separates Laguna from other Southern California beach towns is how deeply art threads into daily life. The Laguna Art Museum sits right by the water. Dozens of galleries line the village streets. Seasonal art festivals have shaped the town's identity for generations, creating a cultural rhythm that keeps humming long after visitors head out. Neighborhoods rise into the hills with sweeping views, while the walkable downtown keeps errands simple and surprisingly social. Crystal Cove State Park borders the north side of town, with miles of protected trails and shoreline, helping hold development in check and preserving the rugged landscape that pulled artists here in the first place. And that protection shows. Healthcare access runs through nearby regional medical centers serving coastal Orange County. Schools anchor local families, and small businesses keep the village feeling intimate instead of commercial. Housing costs remain high because land is limited and demand rarely cools. But residents keep circling back to the same reasons they stay. The microclimate stays mild. The beaches feel personal, and the community values creativity just as much as coastline, maybe even more. You can hike coastal bluffs before breakfast, browse galleries in the afternoon, and walk to dinner without ever turning a key in your ignition. Laguna Beach works because it chose culture over sprawl and scenery over speed, shaping a place where ocean living feels refined but still human. And if California's artsy cliff town caught you off guard, just wait until you see how the East Coast hides Victorian charm at number 8. Number 8. Cape May, New Jersey. Cape May feels like stepping straight into a living postcard. Victorian houses lining quiet streets with the Atlantic Ocean waiting just a few blocks away. And what throws people a little is that this isn't only some charming weekend escape. It's a real town with fewer than 3,000 residents who grocery shop, walk their dogs, and grab morning coffee near Washington Street Mall before heading off into the rest of their day. This is America's oldest seaside resort, and that history shows up everywhere you look. From the brightly painted gingerbread homes in the historic district to the Cape May Lighthouse standing there at Cape May Point State Park like it's always been on duty. Daily life settles into a slower rhythm here. Locals bike along Beach Avenue. Families stretch out on the wide sands near Poverty Beach. Birdwatchers gather near the Cape May Bird Observatory as migrating species pass through one of the most active flyways on the East Coast, and it becomes part of the seasonal pulse. The town works for year-round living because it pairs that small-town scale with practical infrastructure that actually supports people. Cape Regional Medical Center serves the community. Neighborhood schools remain active. Sunset Beach turns into an evening ritual instead of just another tourist stop. The nearby ferry terminal connects residents to Delaware, while marinas and fishing docks keep the coastal economy tied to something older than tourism, something steady. Real estate prices run higher than many inland New Jersey towns, but still fall below several other Northeast beach markets. And that relative balance draws long-term buyers looking for ocean access without megacity density, which makes sense when you stand there and take it in. What really sets Cape May apart is that it never lost its identity. Development stayed controlled. Architecture stayed preserved. The beaches stayed public. You can spend mornings walking past historic inns, afternoons on calm Atlantic shores, and evenings listening to live music drifting through town without feeling swallowed by crowds. And that consistency feels intentional. Cape May delivers East Coast beach living wrapped in history, walkability, and a tight-knit community that feels authentic instead of manufactured. And if a Victorian beach town in New Jersey caught your attention, just wait until you see how Florida blends quiet luxury with coastal infrastructure at number 7. Number 7. Naples, Florida. Naples, Florida kind of quietly rewrote what year-round Gulf Coast living even looks like, because this Collier County beach town blends calm residential streets with a surprisingly deep cultural core. And you feel it right away when mornings start with walks along the Naples Pier. Afternoons drift through palm-lined neighborhoods like Old Naples or Coquina Sands. And evenings usually wrap up downtown on 5th Avenue South with outdoor dining and live music floating between cafes. Life here moves at this unhurried pace, shaped by warm Gulf waters, manicured parks, and a walkable center that keeps daily routines simple without trying too hard. Residents split their time between sugar-soft beaches, shaded trails at Delnor Wiggins Pass State Park, and quiet afternoons near Naples Botanical Garden, while dolphin sightings offshore feel normal, like just part of the backdrop. What makes Naples work beyond vacation season is how complete the city feels, and that part doesn't get talked about enough. NCH healthcare system anchors medical care. Neighborhood schools stay active year-round. Grocery stores, marinas, art galleries, and local restaurants sit close together instead of being scattered across sprawl, which changes how your days actually flow. Old Naples, Aqualane Shores, and Coquina Sands form this coastal backbone where people bike to errands, meet friends for sunset by the water, and treat the beach like it's basically their backyard. The Bayshore Arts District adds a creative edge, with galleries and locally owned spots transforming what used to be overlooked into a livable pocket just minutes from downtown. And that shift feels real when you spend time there. Naples definitely has a reputation for attracting retirees, but younger families and professionals keep showing up for the same reasons longtime residents stay. Clean streets, well-maintained public spaces, protected shoreline, and infrastructure that supports everyday life instead of just seasonal crowds. And yeah, that balance matters. Housing costs vary by neighborhood, but demand stays steady because Naples offers something rare in Florida: coastal beauty paired with consistency. You can kayak mangrove-lined waterways in the morning, handle appointments and errands in the afternoon, and watch the sun disappear into the Gulf of Mexico before dinner, all without feeling disconnected from real-world services, which honestly feels like a luxury in itself. Naples proves beach towns don't have to choose between tranquility and functionality. And if Florida's quiet luxury caught you off guard, just wait until you see how Southern history meets ocean access at number 6. Number 6. Charleston, South Carolina. Charleston kind of hits you like a historic postcard at first glance. But what most people miss is how smoothly it blends old Southern architecture with real, everyday coastal living. Because this city sits right between rivers and barrier islands, where residents can walk cobblestone streets in the morning and have their feet in the Atlantic before lunch, which still feels a little unreal when you say it out loud. The skyline is shaped by church steeples instead of high-rises. Rainbow Row pulls in cameras. Waterfront Park brings those breezes off Charleston Harbor. But this isn't just a tourism backdrop. Families live here year-round. College students move through the streets near the College of Charleston. Professionals commute across the Arthur Ravenel Jr. Bridge while watching shrimp boats drift along the Cooper River. And that mix gives the place its everyday pulse. Beach access comes built in. Sullivan's Island sits to the north, with quiet dunes and laid-back neighborhoods. Isle of Palms offers wide, swimmable beaches and residential streets that feel tucked away from city noise. Folly Beach brings surf culture and casual waterfront cafes, giving Charleston 3 distinct coastal escapes within a short drive, which honestly changes how weekends look. Daily life plays out in walkable neighborhoods like Mount Pleasant and West Ashley, where grocery stores, schools, parks, and community events anchor routines beyond vacation season. Healthcare runs through major regional systems, including MUSC Health, drawing patients and professionals alike. The Port of Charleston keeps the economy moving. The culinary scene consistently ranks among the strongest in the country, turning dinner plans into neighborhood rituals instead of tourist stops. And that part sneaks up on you. What makes Charleston work for full-time living is its balance. And yeah, balance is the word. Historic preservation keeps development controlled. Public access to beaches stays intact. Cultural events, art walks, and waterfront gatherings keep going long after summer fades. You can start your day walking the Battery, handle meetings downtown, take an evening drive to Sullivan's Island for sunset, and still feel like you belong to a real community rather than a resort. Charleston works because it pairs deep history with coastal convenience, proving that beach proximity doesn't mean giving up culture, character, or infrastructure. And if Southern charm with built-in shoreline access caught your attention, just wait until you see how the Pacific Northwest quietly rewrites beach living at number 5. Number 5. Cannon Beach, Oregon. Cannon Beach doesn't try to be sunny or flashy, and honestly, that's exactly why people fall for it. Because this small Pacific Northwest town just fully leans into misty mornings, dramatic skies, and these wide stretches of sand where locals walk dogs in rain jackets while waves crash somewhere off in the distance. Life here sort of orbits around Haystack Rock, rising straight out of the shoreline, this towering sea stack that just becomes part of your everyday view as residents wander past tide pools, watch puffins nest in the warmer months, or jog along the firm-packed beach at sunrise. And after a while, it all feels normal in the best way. The town sits just over an hour from Portland, which quietly turns it into a favorite for remote workers and commuters who want ocean air without giving up access to a major city. And that detail changes everything. Days usually start with coffee near Hemlock Street, then maybe hikes through Ecola State Park or Oswald West State Park. Then evenings roll in with fog, while neighbors meet for dinner downtown. And yeah, that rhythm sticks. Cannon Beach feels livable because it keeps things small on purpose. Local shops replace big chains. Art galleries line walkable streets. Residential pockets stay tucked behind dunes and evergreens. Schools serve a tight-knit community. Healthcare access comes through regional systems serving Clatsop County, while everyday needs get handled within minutes instead of miles, which you don't fully appreciate until you live somewhere else. The weather keeps crowds manageable, and locals see that as a feature, not a flaw. You come here to experience storms, not avoid them. You walk beaches in jackets instead of swimsuits. You learn to love gray skies because they make the coastline feel cinematic and quiet. Quiet in a way that sinks in. Housing costs run higher than many inland Oregon towns, driven by limited inventory and constant demand. But residents consistently say the trade-off is worth it for space, solitude, and scenery that never gets old. And they say it without hesitation. Cannon Beach works because it embraces its moody identity, protects public shoreline access, and builds community around nature instead of nightlife. You can take a morning beach walk, answer emails by midday, hike forest trails in the afternoon, and fall asleep to ocean sounds at night, proving that coastal living doesn't always come with palm trees. And if Oregon's dramatic shoreline caught you off guard, just wait until you see how Florida dials everything way down at number 4. Number 4. Vero Beach, Florida. Vero Beach, Florida is basically what happens when a coastal town decides it doesn't need crowds to feel alive. Because this quiet stretch of Atlantic shoreline on the Treasure Coast runs on consistency instead of spectacle. And you feel that right away when residents start mornings walking Ocean Drive, watching pelicans glide over South Beach Park, and knocking out errands downtown without battling resort traffic. Life kind of settles in between the Indian River Lagoon on one side and wide, uncrowded beaches on the other, creating this daily rhythm that feels calm but still complete, like nothing's missing. Families spend afternoons at Riverside Park. Art lovers wander through the Vero Beach Museum of Art. Locals meet friends along Ocean Drive before heading back to tree-lined neighborhoods that stay residential year-round. And that part matters. What sets Vero Beach apart from so many Florida coastal towns is how stable it feels. And yeah, that stability shows up everywhere. Development stays measured. Tourism stays light. Ownership trends lean toward full-time residents instead of short-term turnover. Cleveland Clinic Indian River Hospital anchors healthcare access. Neighborhood schools stay active beyond seasonal waves. Small businesses keep downtown personal instead of polished, and that gives the place its tone. Housing prices remain more accessible than a lot of Florida beach markets, which quietly pulls in people who want ocean proximity without luxury-level pressure, and they tend to stick around. Nature still leads here. Sea turtles nest along protected stretches of shoreline. Kayakers glide through mangrove-lined waterways. Dolphin sightings off the beach feel routine, like just another part of the day. You can bike to coffee, walk to the ocean, and still be home in time for dinner without planning your whole day around traffic patterns, which sounds simple but feels huge. Vero Beach works because it puts livability over hype, offering warm water, preserved coastline, and a slower pace that supports real routines instead of vacation schedules. And there's something quietly comforting about that. Its Florida beach life strips down to the essentials, and if this low-key Atlantic town caught your attention, just wait until you see how Georgia blends art, history, and ocean access at number 3. Number 3. Savannah, Georgia. Savannah, Georgia kind of feels like a coastal city that forgot to rush. You know, where Spanish moss hangs off oak trees. Historic squares break downtown into these walkable little neighborhoods, and everyday life moves at a pace that just makes people slow down without even realizing it. This is one of those places where residents walk Forsyth Park in the morning, grab lunch near River Street overlooking the Savannah River, and still make it out to Tybee Island for an evening beach walk when the mood hits. Which honestly feels like a pretty solid way to live. Savannah works for year-round living because it blends southern charm with real urban infrastructure, not just vibes. Neighborhoods like Ardsley Park and the Historic District stay active beyond tourist season. Small cafes and locally owned shops line Bull Street. Artists and students from Savannah College of Art and Design bring this creative energy that keeps the city evolving instead of aging in place. And you can feel that in everyday conversations. Memorial Health University Medical Center anchors healthcare access. Schools and community centers support families who actually live here, not just visit for a weekend. What catches a lot of newcomers off guard is how affordable Savannah still is compared to other coastal cities. And that pulls in young professionals, retirees, and remote workers who want character without that coastal price shock. The Port of Savannah keeps the local economy moving. Waterfront parks turn into evening stroll routes. Weekend farmers markets turn neighbors into regulars, which is one of those small things that ends up meaning a lot. Tybee Island sits just a short drive away, offering wide Atlantic beaches and fishing piers that feel more like an extension of the city than some separate destination you have to plan for. Savannah works because it never really chose between culture and coastline. You can tour historic homes in the morning, handle work downtown in the afternoon, and watch the sunset over the ocean by evening. And it doesn't feel forced. That balance creates a lifestyle that feels rich without being overwhelming, rooted in history but open to change. And there's something calming about that. Savannah proves beach access doesn't have to come with resort living. And if Georgia's artsy coastal city caught your attention, just wait until you see how California keeps things grounded at number 2. Number 2. Carpinteria, California. Carpinteria, California kind of feels like this version of coastal Southern California that somehow slipped past the spotlight, where palm-lined streets run straight into swimmable beaches, and everyday life still centers around a small downtown instead of luxury towers. And that alone already tells you a lot. Sitting just south of Santa Barbara, this town of roughly 13,000 residents wakes up to gentle Pacific waves at Carpinteria State Beach, morning walks through Carpinteria Bluffs Nature Preserve, and coffee runs along Linden Avenue, where local shops and cafes actually anchor the community, not just decorate it. What really makes Carpinteria stand out is how grounded it feels, like it knows exactly what it is. Strict zoning laws limit new construction and protect neighborhood character, which keeps the town from sliding into another resort corridor. And you see the results everywhere. Families bike to school. Neighbors run into each other at parks. Surfers head out before work like it's just part of the schedule. Even the beaches feel personal, with long, sandy stretches that stay calm enough for swimming, while harbor seals lounge near protected areas just offshore. And after a while, that becomes normal too. The surrounding coastline stays largely preserved, giving residents daily access to nature without driving hours inland, which honestly changes how you plan your week. Healthcare comes through nearby regional systems serving Santa Barbara County. Schools and community centers support a steady year-round population. Downtown Carpinteria keeps evolving, with small businesses and dining spots that cater to locals first and visitors second. And that ordering matters. Housing prices reflect how close it is to Santa Barbara, but people stay because this is one of those rare California beach towns that still functions like an actual neighborhood. You can hike coastal trails in the morning, run errands on foot in the afternoon, and watch the sun drop into the Pacific by evening without feeling disconnected from real-world infrastructure. And that's when it really clicks. Carpinteria works because it chooses balance over growth, protects its shoreline, preserves walkability, and builds a lifestyle around everyday routines instead of seasonal hype. And there's something quietly powerful about that. If a quiet California beach town that still feels livable caught you off guard, wait until you see how New England wraps history and ocean living together at number 1. Number 1. Newport, Rhode Island. Newport, Rhode Island doesn't even register as a beach town at first. It feels more like a coastal museum you somehow ended up living inside. With sailboats scattered across Narragansett Bay, Gilded Age mansions stretching along Bellevue Avenue, and residents walking the cliff walk in the morning while waves crash right below their feet. This is the place called the sailing capital of the world, and that identity still threads through everyday life. From sunrise jogs past Easton's Beach to afternoon coffee runs near Thames Street, where local shops and seafood spots stay busy with people who actually call this place home, not just weekend visitors drifting through. Newport works year-round because it mixes history with real functionality, instead of freezing itself in time. Neighborhoods remain walkable. The harbor supports marinas and marine trades. Salve Regina University keeps a steady academic presence in motion. Newport Hospital anchors healthcare access. Fort Adams State Park gives residents wide green space for concerts, picnics, and sunset walks, while Ocean Drive doubles as one of the most scenic daily commutes in New England. And that's not an exaggeration. Life moves between colonial streets, working waterfront docks, and residential pockets where families, retirees, and professionals share the same sidewalks, which gives the city this layered, lived-in feel. Housing prices reflect steady demand and limited coastal inventory, but long-term buyers keep showing up because Newport delivers something rare in the Northeast: real beach access paired with culture, infrastructure, and actual community, not just summer noise. You can tour historic mansions before lunch, answer emails in a harbor cafe, walk the shoreline in the afternoon, and watch sailboats glide past your dinner table without ever leaving town. And that combination sinks in after a while. Winters bring quiet streets and fog rolling through in the morning. Summers bring back energy and festivals. Locals stay through both seasons because the city never shuts down when tourists fade away. Newport works because it preserves its architecture, protects public waterfront access, and lets history coexist with daily routine, creating a place where ocean living feels timeless instead of trendy. Be honest, would you trade warm water for sailing harbors and cliffside walks? Because if you made it this far, you're probably already deciding which beach town you'd test first. So now you've seen it. Real beach towns where people actually live, not just visit. Atlantic harbors, Gulf sunsets, Pacific cliffs, walkable streets, normal routines. One of these just changed how you see coastal life. Be honest. Which one? Your move.